Hey everyone, welcome back to Everyday AI Made Simple. Grab your drink of choice and let's dive into what's going on in AI news.
You've heard the term, right? AGI, artificial general intelligence. It's just everywhere, and it sparks all this excitement, but also, let's be honest, a ton of confusion. But what if we could actually get past all that hype? What if we could give it a score? Yeah, let's get into it. So take a look at this number, 58%. What in the world does that mean? Well, this is a score that's being tied to GPT-5, one of the most hyped up AI models out there. But 58% of what? That's the real question, isn't it? Yeah, that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Is this how close we are? The thing is, before we can even start to answer that, we all have to get on the same page about what we're even measuring. And, well, that's where things get really messy. Because the truth is, when you hear people talking about AGI, they're almost always talking about completely different things. It's like everyone has their own personal definition. And without a shared rulebook, you just get stuck in this endless cycle of hype and arguments that doesn't really get us anywhere. Okay, so let's just run through a few of these definitions so you can see what I mean. First up, OpenAI. Back in 2023, they gave this pretty simple, kind of philosophical definition: AI systems that are generally smarter than humans. Simple enough, right? Then you've got the analyst from Gartner. They're all about task completion. For them, it's about a machine that can pull off any intellectual task that a human can do. Okay, a little more specific. Amazon zooms in on something else entirely: generalization. The key for them is, can an AI solve problems it's never seen before, problems it wasn't specifically trained to handle? And then you have this one from the ARC AGI prize, which is super practical, all about the money. They say AGI is here when a system can automate the majority of economically valuable work. In other words, when it can do most of the jobs we pay people to do. Okay, so after all that, you can see there are basically two big camps of thought here, right? On one side, you have the skill acquisition folks. They're all about cognitive abilities. What can the AI do? How does it learn? How does it handle new things? Then, on the other side, you have the economic value camp. For them, it's all about the bottom line. How much money can it make? How many jobs can it automate? So, into this whole messy debate drops this massive new research paper. And its goal is to just cut through all that noise and create one single unified way to measure our progress. And the most important part? It has to be quantifiable. And look, this is not just some random paper. We're talking about a huge group of researchers here from places like the Center for AI Safety, MIT, Berkeley. I mean, the heavy hitters. All of them working together on this single framework. So, what did they come up with? Here it is, their definition of AGI: an AI that can match or exceed the cognitive versatility and proficiency of a well-educated adult. It's simple, it's focused on us, humans, and you can actually measure it. But how do you actually measure that? Well, they didn't just pull this out of thin air. They based it on decades of research in human psychology. They break down that big idea of cognitive versatility into 10 core areas. You can see them here. Things like abstract reasoning, social smarts, perception, and crucially, long-term memory. And here's the key. Each slice of this pie is weighted equally. Because for true general intelligence, you need to be good at a lot of things, not just a genius at one. Okay, so what happens when you take this brand new scorecard and use it to grade the best AI models we have right now? Well, you get this really fascinating and kind of weird picture. And this is where it gets really interesting. Take a look at this. On the left, you have GPT-4. Sure, it does great on knowledge-based stuff, but look at all those zeros. It gets a big fat zero in massive areas like reasoning, working memory, and understanding what it sees. It basically fails to clear even the lowest bar for human-level skill there. Now, look at GPT-5. Wow, huge jump, right? It's scoring in way more categories, but the profile is still, well, the paper calls it jagged. It's like a genius in some things and a total beginner in others. So when you tally up all those scores, GPT-4, a model that millions of people use every day and think is amazing, gets a 27% on its AGI scale. It's a real hard number that shows you just how powerful it is, but also how limited. And that brings us right back to that number from the beginning, 58%. According to this framework, that's GPT-5 score. This number is amazing because it shows two things perfectly. First, the progress is just mind-blowing, right? From 27 to 58 in one generation. But second, it also tells us we're still a long, long way from 100%. So what's the biggest missing piece? The paper points to one thing above all else: memory. Yeah, these models seem to remember things during a chat, but it's often a trick. They're just using a massive context window or some other tool. They can't actually form real, lasting memories from one conversation to the next. And that is a huge roadblock to any kind of real learning or getting to know you. So, having this new cognitive scorecard really brings us full circle, right back to that basic conflict and how we even think about AGI. Is it about what a model can do, or is it about what a model can earn? You've got these two competing philosophies. The cognitive approach, which is what this whole paper is about, is basically a checklist of skills. Can you do this? Can you do that? If you can do all these things, then it's general. But the other approach, which is a huge deal in the business world, is all about the money, the economics. And you want a real-world, high-stakes example of that? Look no further than OpenAI and Microsoft. The story goes that to settle some issue in their contract, they had to legally define AGI. And where they land on? A number. They reportedly agree that AGI will have been achieved when OpenAI builds a system that can rake in an absolutely mind-boggling $100 billion in profit. So what does all this mean? Having a number, a score you can track for AGI, well, it could completely change the race to build it. The really powerful thing about a framework like this is how it just changes the whole conversation. We can stop having those endless, vague arguments like, are we there yet? Are we close? And instead, we can start asking much better questions. Questions like, okay, how much cognitive ground do we still need to cover? And where exactly are the gaps? And that really leaves us with one last, and I think really critical thought to chew on. If we can now put a score on AGI, and we all start chasing that score, does the definition we choose, whether it's based on human-like skills or just cold, hard cash, end up shaping the kind of future we get, the kind of intelligence we ultimately create?
Thanks for watching. If you want more of this type of content, hit subscribe so you'll get notified when I post new videos. And if you're ready to jump into using custom GPTs, think of GPTs as your own personal agent or assistant. You can access our free library of custom GPTs at EverydayAIMadeSimple.ai.